Hello, my friends, and welcome back to History English. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Get comfortable and take a slow breath in and out. Tonight's story begins with something very small, a woman on a bus on her way home from work. But from that small moment came something very large. You don't need to understand every word. Just listen and follow the story with me. She was a seamstress, a person who sews clothes for a living. She had spent the day working, as she did every day, in a department store in the city of Montgomery, in the American state of Alabama. She was tired. Her feet hurt. And on the evening of December 1st, 1955, she got on the bus to go home. She found a seat. She sat down. She was quiet and calm and still. And then the bus driver told her to get up, to give her seat to a white passenger who was standing. And she said no. That no, quiet, calm, dignified, and firm, would ripple outward like a stone dropped into still water, until it had changed the history of a nation and helped inspire a movement that would touch the lives of millions of people all over the world. Her name was Rosa Parks, and this is her story. If you enjoy learning English through powerful true stories like this, please subscribe to History English. It really helps our little channel grow. Thank you, my friend. Our story begins in 1913, in the town of Tuskegee, in the state of Alabama, in the southern United States. A baby girl was born, and they named her Rosa. She grew up in the American South during one of the most painful chapters in that region's history. At that time, in the southern states of America, there existed a cruel and unjust system of laws called segregation. Segregation means the enforced separation of people based on their race. In this case, laws that legally forced Black Americans and white Americans to live largely separate lives, with Black Americans being consistently treated as second-class citizens. Under these laws, often called Jim Crow laws, Black people and white people were required to use separate schools, separate hospitals, separate water fountains, separate restaurants, and separate sections of public transport, including buses. The separate facilities available to Black people were almost always inferior. Worse schools, worse hospitals, worse everything. The law said separate but equal, but in practice, there was nothing equal about it. Rosa grew up in this world. She saw, from childhood, the injustice of the system around her. Her grandfather had been an enslaved person. Her family faced discrimination, and the constant, exhausting indignity of being treated as lesser simply because of the color of their skin. And from childhood, Rosa developed a quiet, unshakable sense that this was wrong, that all human beings deserved dignity and equal treatment. She was not a loud or dramatic child. She was quiet, thoughtful, and deeply principled, and those qualities would stay with her all her life. Long before the famous evening on the bus, Rosa Parks was already a woman of action. This is something that the simple telling of her story often misses. She was not just a random tired woman who spontaneously decided not to give up her seat. She was an experienced and committed activist, a person who works and campaigns for social change, who had spent years working against the injustices of segregation. Rosa was a member of the NAC, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, one of the most important civil rights organizations in America. She served as secretary of the local chapter in Montgomery, and she had been active for many years in the struggle for racial equality and justice. She had even been involved in training and workshops on nonviolent resistance, learning how to stand up to injustice without using violence, how to maintain dignity under pressure, and how to be a part of organized, effective protest. The philosophy of nonviolent resistance, refusing to obey unjust laws, and accepting the consequences peacefully in order to force the world to confront the injustice, was a powerful and principled approach, inspired by thinkers and activists from around the world. So when Rosa Parks got on that bus on December 1st, 1955, she was not just a tired woman. She was a woman of deep conviction and long experience, who had spent years thinking about exactly the kind of moment that was about to arrive. Let me tell you exactly what happened on that December evening, because the details matter. In Montgomery, the city buses operated under a segregation rule. Black passengers were required to sit in the back section of the bus, and white passengers sat in the front. If the front section became full, black passengers who were sitting in the middle rows could be ordered to give up their seats to white passengers who were standing. Rosa Parks sat down in the front row of the black section, the row just behind the seats designated for white passengers. The bus filled up. The bus driver, seeing that a white passenger was standing, told Rosa and 3 other black passengers to give up their row. 3 of them stood up. Rosa did not. The bus driver asked her again. She said that she didn't think she should have to move. He said he would have her arrested. She said, quietly, that he could do that. And so she was arrested. She was charged with violating the laws of segregation. She was taken to jail. It is important to understand something about this moment. Rosa did not simply decide on a whim to stay in her seat. She later said that she was not physically tired, not more tired than usual. What she was tired of was giving in. She was tired of being told to step aside, to make herself smaller, to accept the injustice around her. And on that evening, something inside her was simply done with it. She made a calm, clear, conscious decision. Enough. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is to simply refuse to move. Word of Rosa's arrest spread quickly through the black community of Montgomery. And what happened next was remarkable. The civil rights leaders and community organizers of Montgomery, including a young minister named Martin Luther King Jr., who would go on to lead the national civil rights movement, acted quickly. Within days, they organized a boycott of the Montgomery bus system. A boycott is a collective refusal to buy or use something as a form of protest, in this case, a refusal to ride the buses. The message was simple. If the buses treat us as second-class citizens, we will not ride them. We will walk instead. On December 5th, 1955, just 4 days after Rosa's arrest, the boycott began. And what the organizers hoped might last 1 day, or perhaps a few days, lasted much, much longer. Because the people of Montgomery's black community were done too. They were tired of the injustice, and they walked. Day after day, they walked to work, to church, to school, to the shops, sometimes miles in each direction, in heat, in rain, through every kind of weather. They organized carpools. They pooled their resources. They supported one another. Thousands of people, every single day, chose to walk rather than to ride the segregated buses. And because black passengers made up the majority of bus riders in Montgomery, the bus company suffered a serious financial loss. The boycott was hurting where it counted most, in the wallet. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days, more than a year. During those long months, the boycotters faced real difficulties and dangers. Some of them were threatened. Homes were bombed. People lost jobs for participating. The weight of sustained, organized resistance was enormous. And yet, they kept walking. Rosa Parks herself faced serious consequences. She lost her job. She and her husband received threats. life became harder and more dangerous, but she and the community around her held firm. The case was also fought in the legal system. Lawyers challenged the segregation laws in the courts, arguing that they were unconstitutional, that they violated the fundamental principles of the American Constitution, which stated that all people were equal under the law. And in November 1956, the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, ruled that bus segregation in Alabama was indeed unconstitutional and illegal. The buses would have to be desegregated. That is, the law requiring separation by race would be ended. On December 20th, 1956, the boycott ended. Rosa Parks and other civil rights leaders boarded a desegregated bus in Montgomery. The battle, in this city, had been won. It was a victory that reverberated far beyond Montgomery. The boycott had shown that organized, nonviolent, community-based resistance could work. It had lifted a young leader named Martin Luther King Jr. to national prominence. It had inspired people and movements far beyond Alabama, and it had proven, beyond doubt, that one person's quiet act of courage can start something the whole world feels. Rosa Parks continued to be active in the civil rights movement for years after the boycott. She moved to the city of Detroit, where she worked in the office of a congressman for many years, continued her advocacy for civil rights, and became one of the most honored and beloved figures in American history. She received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the highest civilian honors in the United States. And when she passed away in 2005, at the age of 92, thousands of people came to pay their respects, and her coffin was placed in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, one of the highest honors the country can give. But what does her story teach us? First, it teaches us that quiet courage is real courage. Rosa Parks was not loud or dramatic. She was calm, dignified, and still. Her courage was not a shout. It was a quiet, firm refusal. And it was powerful beyond measure. The world tends to imagine courage as something loud and dramatic, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply sit still and refuse to be moved. Second, it teaches us that one person can matter. We sometimes look at great injustices in the world and feel too small to make a difference. But Rosa Parks was one person making one quiet decision on one ordinary evening, and that decision shook a nation. Third, it teaches us the power of community. Rosa did not change history alone. She was part of a community of determined, organized, courageous people who were ready to act. The boycott succeeded because thousands of people made thousands of small, difficult choices, day after day, to walk rather than accept injustice. Change rarely comes from one hero alone. It comes from many people, acting together, with patience and courage. One person's quiet no can become the sound that changes everything, but only because others are ready to echo it. So tonight, why do I tell you this story? Because Rosa Parks reminds us that great change often begins with a very small act. A woman, a bus, a seat, a word, and ripples that spread around the world. In your own life, the act of learning a language is exactly this kind of quiet, powerful choice. No one may see it from the outside. It may not feel dramatic, but every day that you sit down and listen and learn and practice, every day that you refuse to give up just because it is hard, you are making a small, firm act of will that shapes your future, and maybe the futures of the people around you, in ways you cannot yet see. So keep sitting in your seat, my friend. Keep refusing to give up. Your small, daily courage is building something the world will one day feel. If this story moved you, please give it a like and subscribe to History English. It truly helps us grow. And tell me in the comments, what small act of courage has made a difference in your life or in someone else's? Until next time, my friend, keep sitting still in your convictions and have a wonderful day.